Well, hello there YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger, and today I wanted to talk about this amplifier here. This is what's known as a Stella amp. So I got a pair of these Sony Explode speakers. These are XS W1 1621 180 watt peak power, rated 50 watts. So these are 50 watt speakers. My brother-in-law gave me these. He bought them for his wife's car, and for some reason it didn't work out. So this is a cigar box amp, and there's this sliding panel, which I don't know if you're familiar with a pig nose amp. The pig nose, you can open it up. It has a latch, and you open the back up, and depending on how that opens up, you can hear it. Like if you're playing, it's almost like a wah-wah effect opening that up. This has the same thing, same concept of like here it's closed back sound, and then when you open it, you can really hear it. You can actually like do a little wah-wah effect by manually. But yeah, it's neat because you can, it affects the entire frequency response when you play with that. So this amp does have a built-in battery pack. There's three 18650 batteries in there, which are lithium-ion rechargeables, just like a Tesla battery. And here is the actual Stella amp itself. So if we take a look at the PCB, there's a TLO82, and wow, it's really hard to read. That is really hard to read. It's a 78 TBA 02 UM 7822832. I'm not exactly sure. This the amplifier has gain, trim, and level. The reason this person who designed this board was a newlywed guy. They had young children, and he did not wish to disturb his wife and children with his making a racket with the guitar, and so he built this amp to be quiet. Now, I had run into him in a forum. I was posting, this is in like, oh man, when do you think this was, honey?
What?
Stella amp. Was YouTube even around? Yeah, YouTube was around. If you go back on my channel, I do a demo for this years ago. And it was like the first time I had ever installed Sony Vegas. I had Sony Vegas 9. And I was trying out all the effects on it. So the video has all, going back to like the first time I used Vegas, I was playing with the plug-in effects. And this is a legitimately, I would say it's a great amp. It really is. I kind of didn't ever use it just because it is what it is. It's like in this weird box, and it needed a power supply. So the other day I cut a battery pack into it, and now you can just plug in and play it. And the story behind how I met the guy who designed it, there was a dude who was having a problem soldering, and I said, "Are you using flux?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, you're not supposed to, but I use plumber's flux, paste plumber's flux, and it's the entire reason I'm able to do this hobby is because this dude was a plumber. He used to drink at this guy's house, Willie, and he was like, when you solder, let me ask you a question. When you solder, are you using flux? And I was like, what? What? I was like, my solder already has the flux in it. And he goes, go get your shit. So I went home. We were,
Like
he did. He talked exactly like that. He was my neighbor. So I went home, got my iron, some solder, and some wires. And I came back and he said, okay, go ahead and solder for me. So I did. Then he went and got out his plumbing kit and soldered for me and gave me a half-empty tub of Harvey's Bland plumber's flux. Harvey's plumber's flux, which used to be sold in the plumbing aisle of Home Depot for $1. You get this little tub of it. And man, that Harvey's was the best. They ended up being bought out by a company called OT's, and I got a tub of OT's that I'm still using. That was $9. So my whole thing has always been to use flux when I solder. I've got a little cup of it with a handle it's a metal cup, like a gravy boat. And the reason I use that metal is because I like to remelt it using a hairdryer or an embossing tool. So I'll have whatever little sticks, if you can find something like a WD-40 straw, I stick a needle in it, and so less is more. I'll get a little bit of flux on that needle, and I will wipe it onto each wire that I tin. And adding all that extra flux, I'm probably gonna die young from all the fumes from breathing that in, but it makes soldering really, really easy. Like one of the things I do, you can scuff your Vero, your strip board, scuff it with a scrubby pad, and that removes all the oxidization. And then smear that stuff on there. You take your finger, you put a little bit on there, and just rub it into the board, and then wash your hands. And then when you're done, what I do is, of course, I've talked about this a million times. I've got alcohol, and I'll spray it on the board and use a toothbrush, and I'll do that 3 times. And then I use a hairdryer to dry it off. So that's what I talked about on the forum. I explained my process for using flux, and a couple days later I came back and checked in on the thread, and this guy said, literally, whatever you do not do what Petey does. He was like, plumber's flux it's acidic and it'll melt, your board will disappear, it'll melt. And I had been doing this with the plumber's flux for maybe 10 years at that point, and I got to tell you, everything that I built after the point of that day drinking with Willie when I discovered flux, when he showed me that, all that stuff, it still works. The stuff that I built before that is questionable because I didn't use flux and the soldering quality's bad. If you use flux, the chances of you getting a cold joint they go down significantly. And like if you do have a cold joint, you put a little flux on top of it and just reheat it, and then it comes out like looking like magic. And then of course you could take a Q-tip, put alcohol on it and clean it up. And yeah, that takes extra time and it's extra materials, but that's just the way that I prefer to do it. And if your solder already has the flux in it, great. I wish you great luck. You don't need it. That's better for you to not have that crutch. But if you are soldering something and you have a hard time with it, I would encourage you to get some plumber's flux and apply that. So I did cut a little hole in the speaker grill and put an LED in here. And I mean, should we hear it? Should I demo this real quick? I've got company coming today. Typically, I think this amp, you can run it on, 15 volts. I think the capacitors are rated at 16 volts. 25 volt capacitor there. So yeah, I'm not really sure if he's still selling. Let's see. Is he still selling the Stella amp? I know this guy went on to do a maker faire. They came here. They came and visited me and my wife and my kids. Stella amp board. Yep. $35. It's out of stock right now. The guy's, he calls himself CRAZYBUTABLE, and it's on Tindy. So it's a battery-powered guitar amp with an all-new design based on a TBA 820M. Built-in. Yeah, so this is a different version of it. Stella amp is a battery-powered guitar amplifier. Well, you guys want to see this? Let me click over so you can follow along at home. Yeah, this unbelievably unprofessional video. So yeah, Stella amp is a battery-powered guitar amplifier with an all-new design based on the TVA 820M and a built-in op amp distortion on the front end. Stella amp is very flexible, portable amplifier. It's 1 to 2 watts, depending on the supply voltage and the output impedance, and it has a great clean tone. And this amp does. It really does have a great clean tone. So here he is. That's the guy who came and visited us. He had his Arduino and immediately demanded the password for the Wi-Fi. 3 to 12 volt supply voltage, 1 to 2 watt output power, 4 to 32 ohm output impedance, fully illustrated assembly instructions, 100% open hardware, and there is a page here and a video. Specs and docs, documentation and source code. So yeah, if you're looking to build yourself a battery operated guitar amp, this is a really good one. It's got a great clean tone. It takes pedals really well. I plugged in a Korg Pandora, the PDX5, and played through this with this. The speaker that I have has a tweeter on it, which you might think, oh, why do you have that? Well, it's because I use a lot of amp modelers. So that would be a wise choice if you can find a speaker that has the built-in tweeter, and you could also put a switch on that. I did have this tweeter switchable, and I found that I really didn't like the sound of it without it, so I removed that switch. But Stella amp is a portable battery-powered guitar amplifier, perfect for making your own mini practice amp, cigar box amplifier, headphone amplifier, or any other kind of battery amplifier you can think of. Engineered for a good clean tone, the Stella amp uses a TBA 820M for the back end with a rail-to-rail op amp on the front end for maximum headroom. But unlike other amps, you don't have to crank it to get it to sound good, and this is true. The Stella amp was designed in an apartment late night while my kids were sleeping. Anything that didn't sound good at low levels got fixed early in the process. Many amps have an LM386 for the power stage. The LM86 has a, shall we say, characteristic sound. Yeah, it sounds like complete ass. If you love that sound, then great. If you're not a fan, and that's me, I hate the LM386. If I see that part number in a list of parts for a project, I won't do the project because I know the unbelievable, mind-numbing frustration that comes from building something with this and finding that in the note that you play, the release of the note, the very tail end, this crickly, crackly distortion, unpleasant artifact. Like LM386 is really easy and really cheap. So you can build an amp, you turn it up, it's got built-in distortion, it's like and yeah, people love it because it's, you know, basically it's a beginner project. And if you build one of those and it works, you're amazed at yourself, and you can go show your girlfriend or your mom, and they're impressed by it. But ultimately, when you stop, if you hold a note, and all throughout, it's just a characteristic, like he put it. It has this characteristic sound, which is bad. The LM386 is terrible, and people make distortion boxes with this, and sometimes they'll turn out okay. My experience has been most of the time it will have that unpleasant artifact to it, even if it's a distortion. So I save myself the hassle, and I just don't build anything with that chip in it. So yeah, if you want a little versatility, check this amp out. It says I have kits available at the time update. Sadly, the manufacturers of different Stella amp parts have stopped making the parts that I needed to make the kits. Some parts are available only in surface mount now. Other parts I could get replacements for, but the new parts no longer match the PCB and have been completely discontinued. If I bring the Stella back, it will require some extensive rework. I might have to do it because I dig the Stella as a harmonic amplifier so much. Features great tone, sounds good at low volume levels, versatile controls with gain, trim, and level pots. Works with a wide range of power supplies from 3 to 12 volts up to 16 volts if you replace the op amp. 1 to 2 watt amplifier depending on the supply voltage output. No heat sink necessary. Extra hex output. Turn the Stella amp into a stop box, add headphones or line output or whatever strikes your fancy. Small footprint, will fit in nearly any enclosure, 100% open source hardware, and there's no video here. But yeah, he has a blog. Looks like that was updated about a month ago. Talking about analog synthesizer. So it's all interesting stuff that this guy is into. Should we hear the Stella amp? I mean, I'm not my either this lamp is overheating. It plugs directly into the AC, so it's not this time it's not a case of me using a goofy or improper power supply. So yeah, when you plug this one in, the TGV, the power routes through the jack. So when you unplug it, it shuts the battery pack off. See, it'll motorboat if you crank it. This is the sound I'm getting with 12 volts. Not really in tune. My input jack is a little flaky, so. So that's me sliding the back of the cigar box open and closed. And I've got a security camera on because I'm expecting company, and that might be causing no. So yeah, with changing the pickups on the Strat or sliding this back port open. I mean, this is an unusual size chassis for a guitar amp. It's kind of like, ideally I would like this to be a little bit thicker. You know, if it could come back to like here even, like add another 2 inches, I'd be really happy. But it works well enough. I really like the sound of the sliding the door. I was thinking about taking a hole saw and cutting a hole in here, and my wife was like, no. And that was the smartest no and most appropriate no that I've gotten from her in a while. So that was the Stella amp. I hope that was enjoyable. I might be like trying to go through some older stuff that I've built here and just do videos like this and show you guys, hey, this is this thing, rather than just have mailbag videos all week. So look for more content like this, because I built a considerable amount of stuff, and some of you may not be familiar with it. While my older time viewers, I'm sure you have. So you guys take care of yourselves, hug your pets, and peace.